Hello everybody, it's Lindsay, and we're going to talk about why I'm having another surgery on Thursday. And I'm going to try not to do any cuts in this video if I don't have to, because as I've explained many times now, my computer is old and it's not wanting me to edit very easily anymore. It takes a lot of time to even be able to just cut little pieces out of a video and then get it to put online. So the best thing for me to do is just to have the videos on my phone, and if I need to cut something out, I can, but then just be able to just upload it straight to YouTube through my phone without having to go through a computer right now. Anyways, I digress. Hello. So I kind of wanted to give my story on my illness that I have, kind of give you a little bit of a backstory, and explain what I'm going to have done on Thursday, how I got to this point, and I'm also going to try to film some updates as I go along on my recovery, depending on if I feel like it or not, and so I can at least give y'all an update on what it was like and the recovery process. So if anybody else is going through what I'm going through, then you can have somebody to listen to talk about it. So I have ovarian cysts and endometriosis. Now, we don't know for sure if it's endometriosis, but it appears to be that. We have to get the tissue, a sample of the tissue, and have it biopsied and all that stuff to see if it is endometriosis. But after the other surgeries I've had and the other issues I've had, I'm 99% sure, and so is my doctor, that those other problems cause the endometriosis. Now, what I'm going to talk about is going to be a little personal. Some people aren't going to like that I'm going to talk about this. I know my mom, she loves me to death. She doesn't want me to open up about this kind of stuff. But I've watched other people's videos who have opened up about these kind of things, and it's helped me to kind of better understand what kind of surgery I'm having and what I'm going through. And my situation's a little bit unique. It's a little bit more unique than just having endometriosis. And I'm sure there are other people out there who have had it caused by the same thing. So therefore, I'm going to put this out there. It's going to help me to vent about the situation. It's going to help me document the situation. And it's hopefully going to be a video for people to watch out there and have something to watch to better understand what they're going through if they're going through the same thing. So we're going to start with some personal stuff. So if you don't want to hear about periods and lady things, just turn off the video instead of commenting below and saying, ooh, you're nasty, because it's a part of life. You know, 99.9% of women go through it at some point. So it's just how it goes. Okay. So when I had my first period, I was 13 and it was pretty heavy. But after it happened, actually before it happened, I was having pre-bleeding that was dried. And that seems weird, because it seems like if you're having your period, that it would be fresh, right? That's nasty, I know. But it was dried, and I didn't quite understand what was going on. And then all of a sudden one day I had just a really big period. And then from there on out, I didn't have regular periods. I didn't have one again for 6 months. And then after that, it was like I might have one every 2 months. I might have 2 in a month. I might, I just, that's how it was. And as I got a little bit older, things started evening out a little bit better. I'd have them about once every 6 weeks or something. I did not like to go to doctors back then. I would not let anybody take me to a doctor, and I avoided them as much as I possibly could. I just have really bad anxiety with that sort of thing. And back then, I did not want to own up to my anxiety, and I didn't want to take care of it. That came later on in my college years. I decided to own up to my disorders and take care of them. And we'll get to that. But anyway, I had relatively light periods after that first one that was pretty heavy. They're pretty light periods. I didn't really ever have any cramps that bad. It was like, okay, I'm bleeding a little bit, whatever, fine. But I was very active. I did dance and cheerleading and marching band, and just was a more active person altogether. I rode my bicycle all the time. Pretty active person. When I turned 18 and I started to go to college, my life had become a little bit more sedentary. I wasn't doing any sports, I wasn't doing any activities, and I was sitting a lot and studying a lot. And that's when things started getting really bad. The first really bad one I remember having was in my statistics class. Gosh, my lisp. It was in my statistics class, my first year of college, and I was trying to focus, and I was just in agonizing pain just started to radiate through my abdomen, and it was hurting so bad. And I was like, okay, come on, you can deal with it. You can deal with it. You can't leave this class. And this is one of those older man teachers that really hate it if you have to leave class. They just think you're being extremely disrespectful. So I was just trying my best to hold it together, but it got so painful. I couldn't take it anymore. I thought that I was going to explode all over the place, and it just felt like I was going to be really sick to my stomach. I really felt like I was going to vomit and everything else all at the same time. So I looked at my friend and I said, I think I'm having a really bad period. Can you can I like have a copy of your notes later? And if he asked, tell him I got really sick to my stomach. So the professor. And so I just I started to walk down, and he's looking at me, and I'm just like, I'm really sick. And I just ran to the bathroom, and he just looked at me like I was crazy, which isn't much different from my first period when my teacher told me I was lying about being sick. You gotta love men sometimes. Not lying. So I went, and it was a very, very heavy period, and I was just absolutely dying. It was very difficult for me to even walk to my car. I had to stop several times at various bathrooms and just kind of crawl up in a ball in the bathroom and like breathe. I remember going to my apartment and grabbing as much ibuprofen as I possibly could take, and it just seemed like it wasn't enough, and I just got in the bathtub and warmed up some water and just sat there and cried. And not every period was that bad, but it was close, if not worse than that, every single time. And it was just to the point where I just thought I was dying. The last period I had before I went to finally do something about all this was my worst ever. And it just seemed like no amount of medication, over-the-counter medication, was doing anything. And I almost had my mom take me to the hospital, but I really didn't want to go. I was like, I've got this. I'll take a muscle relaxer. I'll take anything, just something. And I dealt with it. But how do we get to that point? Well, let's go back a little bit first. I finally decided to start taking control over my anxiety when I was in college, and I had a psychology class that discussed the different kinds of anxiety disorders. And I've always been kind of a shy person when I'm not on stage. When I'm on stage, I like to perform, and I'm able to perform. But when I'm not on stage, I just have a really hard time communicating with people if I either don't have a medication or if I'm not practiced at it. So I went to a doctor at that point, but I didn't really tell him about the whole bad periods and stuff. I went to an anxiety doctor, and I tried medication for the first time. I went to therapy for the first time. I went to group therapy for the first time, and I worked out a lot of my problems. And I went off the anxiety medication, and I did pretty good until I went through some relationship stuff a few years ago that just really broke my heart and had me in a very bad mental state, and all of my anxiety was coming back. My bad periods were worse than ever. There's been moments where I've been stressed out before, and I would have like a moment where I felt like I had an ovarian cyst that might be about to burst or something, and I wouldn't bleed or anything, and I just would lay on the floor in agony and then wonder why nothing happened. So finally, what brought me to go to a doctor was that I had been in a couple relationships, and I've always been very protective with my body. I've been very behind sexually because I used to think I was going to save myself until marriage. But then I realized saving myself for just a person that I trust, and a person that is willing to wait, and a person who is willing to be patient and everything with me was the best bet on that. But anyway, I had not been super intimate before, only kissing and stuff. And once I had been with 2 different guys, I realized that this is disgusting, and this is going to make some people go, what the? I didn't have a full-on hole. And that's gross to say. It's gross to say. But I didn't. I didn't have a full-on hole. And I thought at first that I was just tight. Going back a little bit further, I tried to wear a tampon when I was 16 or 17 or something like that, and I couldn't get it in. And I got it stuck, and my mom had to help me get it out. And she's like, it wasn't even in there, but it was stuck. And I'm like, that's so weird. Like, why? I couldn't wear a tampon. Nobody could even put a finger in there. And it started to weird me out. And I realized that I probably have a medical issue that needs to be seen. And I had avoided birth control, and I had avoided going to a doctor. I avoided pap smears. I avoided everything until I was 24, almost 25. Believe it or not. And being such a virgin with what I called my human chastity belt, my God-given chastity belt, I felt very insecure about things, and I wasn't going to do anything about it until I had a boyfriend who told me that I would never work because I would never be able to have sex. And even if I could, it might never work right. And it might take years before I ever could. And he couldn't wait for me, even though he had said he loved me. And he was over it at that point, because he couldn't wait to have sex with me. He couldn't wait and be there for me, even after he told me he was going to be there for me when I decided to go get a surgery. I'm going to turn my heater on down here, so you're going to hear a little bit of blowing in the background. So, after we broke up and I was really heartbroken and everything, I finally went to a doctor that my mom had recommended. It's her gynecologist as well. And she's very, very nice. She's very hyperactive. She's very relatable. And I'm very glad that I have her as my doctor and my surgeon. But we had kind of already looked up beforehand what we thought was wrong with me. And it ended up being exactly what was wrong with me. Well, the first thing that was wrong with me. I had a micro perforated or imperfect hymen. And you probably have heard about the hymen, obviously. Some people call it your cherry, and that, you know, when you have sex for the first time, it could bleed a little bit and it rips open or whatever. Well, technically that's not true. A normal hymen has plenty enough space for, you know, insertion, but it can bleed and be irritated a little bit the first time when it does stretch. But with me, instead of having a normal sized hole, it was almost completely covered with skin. And I only had one little tiny hole that not even a pinky could fit into. And so all the blood that was coming from my period was pooling up in my vaginal canal and in my uterus. And only when it would clot and get really heavy would it start to push out. So clearly that was one of the main reasons I was in so much agony every time I was having a period. And also why I couldn't wear a tampon. So the first, well, first of all, let me educate you a little bit on this. So there's different ways you can have an imperfect hymen. One of the ways is that it can be completely closed up, which is the most dangerous, because you might think, you know, why am I not having a period? And all that blood is actually pulling up in there. So that's one reason they say if you haven't had a period by the time you're like 15, you really should go get that checked out, because, I mean, that could be one of the reasons. 2 is what I had, a little hole, too small for anything to go in, almost too small for anything to come out. And the third way is that you can have a bunch of little holes that aren't connected to one another. And she showed me a diagram of all these different things, of all these different options of what it could have been, and she told me which one mine was, and she showed me how it looked and how we were gonna fix it. So the first surgery I had was in office. It was not in an OR. I went down to about an hour away from home, and I went to her office, and they did, instead of general anesthetic, they did local anesthetic, and that was the most painful part were the shots. It probably took about 8 or 9 shots of lidocaine into my vagina, and that burned so bad. That was the worst pain. Whew. One of the worst pains I've ever felt in my life. But once it was numb, I couldn't feel anything, except I could smell burning flesh, which was disgusting, and I could feel warm blood dripping down, which is gross. But no, all she did was she took a cauterizing tool, like a laser burning tool, and burned out part of the hymen. And then there I was. It only hurt for about a week, and it was not that painful. It was kind of burning. It was just kind of like if you had cut yourself shaving or something, you know? It was just kind of like a burning sensation that only happened when I would get up and down out of a chair or out of bed or whatever. But yeah, I believe I don't even think she stitched it at that point, because she just had to burn it, and it healed, and I thought, okay, I'm good to go. Then I found out that I was still having issues, because she gave me dilators, and they're like sex toys, but they're not. They're medical. And you put them in, and there's different sizes, and it will stretch your vagina. And I got to like the 3rd one, and I realized I was still having a lot of pain in my canal, my birth canal, my vagina, my vaginal canal. And I just didn't understand why it was still hurting if that problem had been fixed, because I thought that was the problem. So we finally decided that there's some kind of, and this was a year later, we decided there's some kind of lump. There was some kind of lump in my vagina. And so like basically, this is gross. I'm not gonna do a hole. This is like the lining of the vagina, right? So normally you insert something and it's just gonna go in, you know? Well, this was like, had a lump. And so whatever would go in would hit it, and then you'd have to go up around it, which would make it tighter and would make it hurt really bad. So she said she didn't know what it was, and that we'd have to do exploratory surgery, or I would just have to deal with it. It was my decision. I had a massive panic attack. I ended up going on medication that year for my panic disorder again, and it changed my life completely. I've been a way more calm person. I've been way more accepting of things that are wrong with my body, like this. And yeah, So I had an actual operation this time, an actual inpatient operation, and I did it in Georgia. I live in Blue Ridge, Georgia, and I did it over at Fannin Regional this time. So we only had to drive like 10 minutes to get there. And that was the first time since my wisdom teeth surgery that I'd been put to sleep. And that was the first full-on surgery on my body, other than my mouth, that I'd ever had. So it really freaked me out. But they were really nice to give me anxiety meds and my IV beforehand, and kept me really calm. And honestly, once I got out of anesthesia and I got out of kind of, back to normal, there was less pain with that surgery, recovering from it, than there was with the hymen surgery. I guess because it was more up inside, and I wasn't sitting on it, if that makes sense. So less pain, a lot less pain. It was just kind of almost like it wasn't there. The stitches dissolved pretty quickly, and there it was. And I thought, surely to God, at this point, it's gone, right? Oh, and by the way, it was a cyst. She said they biopsied it and everything, and I remember waking up from surgery and being like, oh my God, Mom, was it a tumor? Was it a tumor? It wasn't a tumor. It was just a benign cyst. And I don't know how that happened. I guess she thinks I was born with it that way. Part of me thinks, sorry, I had to pause for a second. Thought Mom was coming down here. Part of me thinks that I got the cyst from bleeding back up in me, and then part of me thinks that I was born that way. I think it would make sense that I was born with like a massive tissue that was mutated, and then my hymen was closed off too. So I probably did come together that way. I probably was just born that way. And it's unfortunate. And it's really unfortunate that I had to deal with it in a way where I felt like I was disrespected by men because of it. And all I could hear in the back of my head were the ex-boyfriends saying, you're never going to work, you're never going to have sex, you're never going to please a man. Just really negative things that I still to this day have a hard time getting out of my head, because I'm not 100% fixed yet. So anyway, thought I was fixed. And then, how am I going to say this without it being disgusting or people looking at me funny? I lost my virginity. To all the Baptists out there I went to church with, I'm so sorry. If you want to think I'm going to hell, that's cool. I think at that point I just had said, I've already had 2 surgeries, and I need to know if I work or not. I need to know, because it was just weighing on my mind. I needed to know. And it works, but very, 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 very painful. So incredibly painful. And sometimes it's okay, and sometimes it's just extremely painful. So I just knew something was wrong, and I had a feeling it was probably what they call vaginismus, where your brain responds to past trauma that you've had in your vagina, and your vagina tenses up. But I was possibly 100% wrong. I went to my doctor again, and I should have seen her last year, but COVID ruined all of that, and I was supposed to see her in April of 2020. That got moved to October, and then in October they said you can't see her because she's only dealing with like pregnancies and births and stuff right now, because she's having to catch up on stuff. She can't do a 1-year exam. So they said you'll have to see a PA, which I love the PA, but she's not my surgeon, so therefore she doesn't really know much about, It got moved all the way to November. And so finally in November, I got to see the PA, and she said that I would have to see my surgeon. to be able to figure out what the problem is. So I had all the usual stuff done. Pap smear has never come back saying I had any kind of precancer or cancerous cells, so it clears my mind and my worry a little bit, because I always worried that any of those cysts could be cancer, but none of my tests have come back showing that, so that's encouraging. Finally got to see my doctor in January of this year, 2021. And I told her my symptoms, and I said I'm having really bad periods. My lower back pain is god-awful. And you've got to remember now, this is actually important too. I was severely underweight from late 2018 until late 2019. And I had to go on medication that helped me eat again. I just was having really bad stress and anxiety, and I wasn't hungry hardly ever, and it was hard to keep food down because of just all the nervous stomach energy. I got down to 82 pounds and I had no period. So I went for like a year not having a period, and I finally started having one again, and with each period I had, the pain got worse, the periods got worse. And even though I was on birth control, and the birth control helps with making the periods lighter, the pain was coming back again. And I was shocked because I thought that the birth control had kind of gotten to where it made my periods really simple and not painful, but the pain was coming back. So I told her my symptoms: bad periods, I was exhausted all the time, like 3 weeks out of the month, before my period, after my period, during my period, I just feel like crap. My lower back has been absolutely killing me, and usually it's only my upper back that hurts, so this was really weird and random. And I told her how sex was painful, and not just that, like, I'm having pain with, like, sometimes it's hard to pee, sometimes it's hard to do the other things. It's just having issues and pains in my stomach. And she's like, okay, we're gonna do an ultrasound. And I had a feeling that was gonna happen. And I said, I think I have a feeling this is gonna be endometriosis, and I'm prepared for it. So she did a transvaginal internal ultrasound where they put it in your vagina, which is not the most comfortable experience, but you know, whatever. And then she was like, she goes like up toward the left, and she goes, does that hurt? And I go, that is horribly painful. And she goes, well, let me explain it to you. Your left ovary is covered in cysts. I mean, she's like, none of them are like large, but there's a ton of little cysts, and that's causing your pain. And she's like, also the right one has cysts, but it doesn't have nearly as many as the left one. But also, she's like, I assume that all the back bleeding you've been having all these years because of that, of the hymen issue and the cyst, it's probably caused endometrial tissue to grow outside of the endometrium, which is called endometriosis. And what it does is it irritates the lining around your uterus and even your other organs. It irritates the tissue, which causes then scar tissue to grow. So the cysts are called chocolate cysts, and they've got dried blood in them, which is absolutely disgusting. I can't believe they're called chocolate cysts. It's gross, so nasty. But I'm gonna have those cysts burned off. Apparently they burn them off, and then they're going to have to cut loose any scar tissue on my organs. So basically, endometriosis can attach to a lot of different things. It can attach to your uterus, your ovaries, your fallopian tubes. It can attach to the vaginal wall. It can attach to your kidney ducts, your kidneys, your bladder, your bowel, your colon, your appendix. It can attach to a lot of different things, which can cause bowel problems, which I have, can cause issues with peeing, with your bladder, with emptying your bladder, which I have, and obviously causes really bad cramps and back pain. It can attach to muscles around, you know, your back. I just got to a point where around Christmas and New Year's, I was in so much agony. I was just in so much agony. I even found hydrocodone pills from my past surgeries that I didn't take because I didn't really need them back then, and they weren't even enough. I was in so much agony, I would have to take like a muscle relaxer. And even then, I would just go to sleep. I couldn't function during the day without being in severe agony. And the more ibuprofen I took, the more my stomach hurt. And it was just an ongoing cycle of pain and agony. So finally she said, the first thing we're going to do is, while we're waiting to have the surgery, because she had to go out of town for a few weeks. So we had to plan around her schedule and my schedule. And since I am a musician, I wanted to pick the weekend that had the least amount of shows. So this coming weekend, I only had to cancel one show so far. Now, I've got a weekend of shows coming up the next weekend, and I'll have to assess, can I do those or not? I might have to find fillers. We will see what happens. But where was I going with that? Oh, we had to work around schedules. So here we are. My surgery is on February 25th. And what she's had me do is normally, now this isn't with all birth controls, but most birth controls that you take, I take low estrogen Fe, which has iron in it, which helps with my anemia from bleeding so much and stuff. You take this one color pill, which is the birth control, all the way until the last 4 days of the month. And then those first 2 days of the last 4 days, you take, it's like estrogen only. It like heightens your estrogen or something to make you have a period. It's letting you know it's time to release your eggs. And then the last 2 pills are sugar pills. I don't even take them anymore now that I know they're just placebos. They're 2 brown pills and they're just sugar. It's just so, if you want to take it, to feel like you've taken a pill that day or whatever, but they don't do anything. And that makes you have a period, and then you start your cycle all over again. So what she's had me do is continue taking the same type of birth control, but instead of taking the 2 white pills and the 2 brown pills, I've been taking only the blue pills. So I skip those 4 days and just start taking the first Sunday of the next month of pills on that day. So I just take straight blue low estrogen Fe and don't take the special pills for the period. And that way it stopped me from having a period. And it took me up until about last week to stop having back pain and to start feeling like I actually have energy again. So that proves right there that a lot of my issues were coming from just having a cycle, because of my issue that I have going on. So that's basically my story on how I got endometriosis, how I've gotten to this point. And yeah, Thursday's the day. It's Tuesday right now. Thursday's the day. I have to be at the hospital, which is an hour away from my house now. It's going to be down in Canton, Georgia. I have to be there at 5:30 in the morning. And it'll take 2 hours for them to prep me and put me to sleep. And then the surgery's at 7:30. Depending on how much they find, it could take several hours, or it might only take an hour and a half. That's the ideal time, is an hour and a half. They're going to hopefully only make 1 incision in my belly button so it can't be seen, and go in with a laparoscopy with, the camera. And they can go in there and they can see where everything is with the camera, and they can burn and cut wherever they need to. And I should be able to leave the hospital a couple hours after I wake up and get out of recovery. And I'm really worried about a few things. And if you've had this surgery before and you want to let me know your experiences below, that would really, really help me. The things I'm worried about the most are when I can get back to work, because obviously as a musician, it's not like you get paid sick leave. I have been able to get a little bit of unemployment this year, but this is a little different. I will not be getting paid for taking days off, and I am worried about how quickly I'll be able to get back to work. I am worried about the gas that they put in you, because they gotta blow your stomach up. I'm worried about the pain from that. A lot of people say it causes your shoulders to hurt, and I have a crooked back with a bad shoulder. with a pinched nerve. So I'm really worried about the pain in that, because when that hurts really bad. So I'm worried about that. I'm worried about the pain meds working enough without making me just scratch a hole in my skin like it has before. Really bad with codeine and stuff, makes me itch. And then what else? I guess I'm worried about it working. I'm worried about, like, what if it doesn't work and I still have pain, not only during intimacy, but also just in general. If I'm playing guitar, I don't want my back to hurt. I'm scared about being able to pee after the surgery and do the other thing, because I've heard from some people that some people have a hard time peeing, some people have a hard time going number two. I know when I had my cyst removed a couple of years ago, I had a really hard time peeing before I even left the hospital, and they had to watch me and make sure that I actually was able to pee before I left the hospital. So I'm worried about a lot of those things. I'm obviously worried about, will they need to make any more incisions? Will it be so bad that I will eventually need a hysterectomy? Will I ever be able to have kids, even though I don't want them right now? Will I ever be able to? Will this keep coming back? I'm also worried about the hormones that I'm going to have to take after I get off of this. A lot of times they put you on Orlissa, I believe that's what it's called. There's other options though, but all of these drugs that they put you on, any of them, most of them, for endometriosis, put you in temporary menopause. So I'm really scared about being in temporary menopause and hot flashes and stuff, although I already have some right now, just due to the fact that my hormones are not regulated because I've got cysts on my ovaries and they can't work properly. But yeah, I'm worried about things like that. I'm not necessarily worried about dying or worried about, they've not really expressed anything, concern about cancer or anything, although that sits in the back of my mind. They've told me not to worry about that because nothing showed up bad in the ultrasound, nothing showed up bad in my tissue samples, so I'm hoping that that's not going to be a factor. One final thing about this is that I couldn't tell this until I gained weight. So I know part of this is just the fact that I've gained weight, but I have endobelly. And I've already had a couple people online, and actually someone in person, asked me how far along I was and what I was having. And I was like, I'm not pregnant. And it's so embarrassing because I've always been really skinny. I've always been in shape in a way to where I was happy with my body, except for my chicken legs, which I used to have chicken legs. But yeah, I've never been really insecure about my stomach before until recently. And basically, they say what endobelly is that you're swelling and you're bloating, not only with air and gas, but the tissue is making like the endo tissue is making your tissue swell, and it's causing a roundness. So not only do I have the fat that I've gained, but I have a roundness to my stomach. Let me try to show you what I'm talking about. There's a stain on my shirt now. See? Look at this. I look pregnant. You see this? That's not normal. Now, I should look something like that. And even though it's a little fatty, I should still look like that. But instead I look like this. And it looks like I'm pregnant. And I really hate it. And there's no baby in there. So, if you go online and you look up articles, there's these girls on there that have endometriosis and have endobelly, and there's some that are bigger and some that are smaller, and you've got some that are sick, thin, skinnier than I am, and then they just have this belly, and they're not pregnant. It's endometriosis. So I even got a message the other day over on my fan page from someone I went to high school with, and they said, a little birdie told me you're pregnant. And I said, well, whoever the little birdie is, they're wrong, because I'm not. And I want to clarify that with everybody. Not that it would be a bad thing if I was pregnant. I mean, I'm not ready to be pregnant. I don't plan on making, like, having an accident and getting pregnant anytime soon. That's something I would want to prepare to do when I'm quite a bit older, mid to late 30s. I like to give myself some time because I'm still very immature and I have too many goals in my life to want to have to put a kid through me struggling. I want to be able to give the kid everything I possibly can when I have one. But to anybody out there who wants to think I look pregnant, think what you want, but please stop telling me I look pregnant, because I know what my belly looks like. And it's really upsetting me for you to keep pointing out that my belly is round like I'm pregnant. And hopefully that will start to go down. I've talked to several people who have had this surgery before, and they said that they had the belly, and that over a few weeks after the surgery and the swelling went down, that it started to kind of flatten out and be to more of a normal non-pregnancy looking shape. So yeah. Surgery's Thursday. Thank you so much for listening to my little story here. I'm sorry to anybody who finds this completely disturbing. If you did find it disturbing and you've watched it all the way to the end, then I don't know what's wrong with you. But so people are gonna say she's doing this for attention, but really I just thought it would be kind of interesting to share my story, since my case is something that a lot of women go through these type of things, go through endometriosis, but also because my situation, like I said before, is just a little bit unique because of the hymenectomy that I had and the cyst removal that I had prior to this endometrial surgery. So yeah, if you have had this surgery before, please let me know in the comments how yours went, how the recovery went. Did it help you in the long run? Did the hormones you took after the surgery help you to keep this from coming back so severely? I know a lot of people have to have surgery every 5 years or so for it. Just let me know your experiences, anything that I should eat or drink afterward to help my healing process. I've done a little bit of research on that myself. Let me know anything that would make my recovery easier, I guess. I bought myself a Nintendo Switch so that I have something to play around with when I'm laying in bed recovering. And I want to thank everybody who's been very supportive during this time, where I've been very moody. I've had days where I've barely been able to make it through playing guitar for work without wanting to just walk out because my back's been in so much pain. It's caused me to sometimes drink a little more alcohol than I've had been at my shows because I've been trying to numb the pain. But I hope that you can take something away from this, and I hope that I hope everything goes well. Remember to like this video, comment, and subscribe. We can have a discussion about this in the comments below. And share this with anybody who might be going through the same thing. If you are going through the same thing and you haven't had a surgery yet, use this as an opportunity to talk about it with me. And also, I plan on making an update video to discuss how everything went and how I feel afterwards. I don't know if I'll make that immediately afterward or if I'll wait a few weeks and see how I feel. But I will update, so be prepared for that video if you're curious as to how everything turns out. But I will post something on Facebook Thursday or Friday, whenever I feel like it, to let y'all know that I made it out of surgery and that I'm home and everything. If not, just know it is coming. As soon as I feel up to it, I will post something. But thank you for listening to this video. I'm not going to rant any longer. I plan on making actual content other than just story times and rants about life in the future. But until then, I'm going to take it easy. I'm going to eat some yogurt. I'm going to rest. And I'm going to get ready to get up at 4:30 in the morning and go have my surgery on Thursday. So, thank you for watching. Best wishes, everybody. Prayers are greatly appreciated. And I will see you after my surgery. Bye.